Welcome to Supporting Members Through Effective Check-ins, a webinar for VISTA leaders. One of the main roles leaders play is to support the members on their team so they can succeed in completing their VISTA assignments. Conducting occasional check-ins can be a great way to provide that support. I'm your host, Andy King, Senior Training Specialist with AmeriCorps VISTA. Leading our presentation today is Vivica Brooks. Vivica served with AmeriCorps VISTA as a Service Learning Coordinator right here in Washington, D.C. She continues her involvement with the VISTA program by serving as a trainer at VISTA in-service trainings and on webinars like this one. In her regular work, she serves as a workforce development trainer to underserved and marginalized populations, assisting them with the power to prosper. Vivica, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am so excited to be with you all this afternoon to look at check-ins as a way of supporting your members. The work that your members do and that you as leaders do is admirable, exciting, hard, and can sometimes be very challenging. I will be sharing some of my experience to show how support from fabulous individuals such as yourselves, our leaders, can really make a difference. So let's look at our session outcomes. First, we're going to identify the dual purpose of check-ins. Next, we're going to cover aligning check-ins with the needs of the member during various points in their service year. And lastly, we're going to apply strategies to make check-ins effective and engaging. So let's get started by looking at dual purpose of member check-ins. When we think about check-ins, most of us think about tasks, projects, or what I like to refer to as the work. For this discussion, I want us to explore and expand what it means to check in and how you can host dual purpose check-ins with your AmeriCorps VISTA members. Dual purpose check-ins are set up to check on the VISTA member first, and then the VISTA project related work. Checking in on the person means acknowledging that VISTAs are people first. Personal dimensions can impact our work. So it's important to make sure that we are nurturing that relationship. And the order in which we check in with our VISTA members is very important. Discussing how a person is doing can help them clear out some of the worries that may be at the forefront of their mind so that they can focus on other topics. Asking about and addressing worries frees up that individual from having to expend energy on worries while trying to have a discussion about the service they're performing. Now, I'm not suggesting you act as a therapist. Rather, it is taking care of their basic needs first before jumping into more task-focused topics. For example, if your member expresses feeling nervous about finding community partners, you might ask specifically, what makes you nervous about this task? You might also share how you accomplished a task during your service year. This, coupled with following up with the member afterwards, are excellent ways to show support. The key question of checking in on the person is, how are you doing? Checking in on the person can be as simple as starting with the broad question of, how are you doing? Or something more specific about a concern or a challenge or something they mentioned during a previous check-in you all had. I'm reminded of the Maya Angelou quote. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This quote really sums up why the person-first approach can lead to a successful service year for the member and for you. Through inquiry and following up, you will be showing support to your members, thus giving them an ally as they assist in the war on poverty. Now, let's take a look at checking in on the work. So we've checked in on the person, and it's essential to spend some time checking in on their service or progress on their VAD, what we have affectionately now called the work. A check-in meeting allows you time to see how everything is going with the member's task, and it also allows you a time to motivate, engage, and support the member. An article in Gallup Business Journal explains that high-performance managers, or in our case, leaders, create an engaging and productive work environment by being involved in members' work lives. Remember the quote, "People will always remember how you made them feel." This is where we lead from, person first. Next, we want to help members set goals and prioritize their projects. Make sure you ask members what goals they would like to accomplish during this service year. It does not always have to be a challenge that's discussed during check-ins. When someone asks me, "What do I want?" or "What would I like to see happen?" I instantly have a level of commitment. First, because they asked, and second, I feel like what I can contribute is important and brings value. Then, now you're ready to move on to the project. How are you doing with your assignment, task, deliverables? Or what are you working on right now? And when we follow the steps of this process, it allows us to hold members accountable. I know as leaders, your role is to support members, and holding members accountable is a wonderful way to show support because members can really stretch and see what they're capable of. Now, remember that example I gave about being nervous around securing community partners? Full disclosure, well, that happened to me. And having my Vista leader ask me why and follow up with me allowed me to think of some creative ways to accomplish the task and step out of my comfort zone. He was holding me accountable. Oftentimes, it is the feeling of support that leads into the confidence one feels when completing or tackling new tasks. You, as leaders, are uniquely positioned because you've worked in the area of service and can assist members with seeing around corners as they too contribute to being part of the solution. However, we must first make sure that the person being part of the solution has the support necessary to do so effectively. So when we think about, there's numerous benefits that check-ins provide to the member, to you, the Vista leader, as well as to the entire project. Let's take a moment and look at a few. Check-ins keep a regular channel of communication open between you and your member. If done regularly, it sets up a point when you know you'll be talking again so you can follow up on what happened between check-ins. By communicating regularly, we help prevent miscommunications or misinterpretations because we've allowed the time and the space to talk things through, ask questions, and check our understanding. Regular check-ins also provide you both with an important connection point when you don't always have a chance to see each other in person. Checking in has a potential to reduce feelings of isolation when we are working in different locations. I can't stress enough that check-ins convey that the member is valuable and that they matter. This also helps keep them motivated during challenging points in the year because they know they've got you in their corner. Regular check-ins can also help spotlight any issues that may be coming up for members, as well as identify extreme dissatisfaction early on, which could potentially prevent a member from leaving. So check-ins also can help us with retention. And then finally, holding regular check-ins with your members can drive your own professional development and growth. Working with a variety of individuals can help you diversify the types of support you provide. You'll see what doesn't work and what does, and you'll have the chance to assess and adapt going forward. This really teaches you to hone your leadership skills and learn how you can improve. So with that, let's pause for a moment Andy has our first question of the session.
All
Andy?
right, so as Vivica mentioned, we have a quick activity and it's in the form of a poll question. You should see a poll window that popped up on your screen. So the question is this: thinking back to your own service, what was the most exciting time period? Was it those first 3 months when everything was new? The next 3 months as you felt more settled? Or maybe it was in months 6 to 9 when you were in the heart of service? Or maybe the last 3 months of service? So please select the one that you found most exciting and be sure to click submit so that we can tally up your response. And we'll give you just another moment or so to get your answer in. Looks like a little more than half of you have responded. Now we're up to 2/3, so we'll give you like 10 more seconds and then we'll close it out and see where we landed. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close it and we'll publish those, so they'll pop up on your screen in just a moment here. All right, there they are. So it looks like most everyone, the largest number of folks thought that the most exciting time was that first 3-month period when everything was new and exciting. Vivica, what do you think?
Yes, I did do AmeriCorps, and I do think that first 3 months was like that magical time frame. So that's cool. Good to see that. Thanks, everyone. All right, so let's look at kinds of experiences many VISTA members have. And this image may resonate with you. It is a graphic of some of the ups and downs of a typical VISTA member's journey of service. Though it's not necessarily the ups and downs everyone will have, it does show some common phases VISTAs may experience. You may have had similar experiences from your own service year. We'll start by looking at the enthusiastic beginner who is in their first month or two of service. The enthusiastic beginner has the potential to become a disillusioned learner somewhere around 3 months in. And then after the slump, the VISTA can start to perform, though they can still feel cautious or reluctant. And this is what's known as the reluctant contributor. And then the last milestone is peak performers, or when a VISTA hits their stride and really becomes a strong contributor. You may have had flashbacks to a time in your service, and that is great. Hold on to that, because now we're going to explore a model of situational leadership. And as we explore, I want you to start to think about your current members and what might be the best way to support them where they are. So situational leadership is an area of research that identifies different needs of workers, or in our case, members, based on their level of motivation and skill. The situational leadership model is a model of a team leadership in which the specific needs or situation of the team member determines the type of leadership that will be most beneficial for them. This model is great for us because, remember, we are leading with the person first. The situational model was a concept introduced by Paul Hersey, Ken Blanchard, and Dewey Johnson in a book called Management of Organizational Behavior. They recognize that individual team members can need different types of support at different times. And they found that there's not just one leadership style that can effectively manage a team. They were looking at employees and they found 2 basic elements that lead to effective performance: competence, ability, or skill, and commitment, motivation, or will. An individual has to know how to perform the task, and they have to be motivated to do it. If either one of these is missing, the performance is going to suffer. So let's look at this in relation to the journey of the VISTA service. At the beginning, a member is generally very enthusiastic, even if they don't know what they're doing. Over time, their skill level increases as they learn what they need to do and build the skills to do it. But there will be some ebb and flow. Momentum or motivation may decrease as they become disillusioned by the challenges involved in the work. It can take some time to regain that motivation. So let's look at it another way. We can plot the level of will versus skill in a quadrant as Blanchard's team did. In the graphic on your screen, you'll see the column on the left has a high level of skill and the column on the right has low skill. The row at the top has a low level of will with higher will below. The blue bars represent skill and the green bars represent will. So remember, in our journey of service, we saw that a typical member starts out with a lot of will, but not much skill. The enthusiastic beginner is here in the bottom right corner. Then, before they can learn the ropes, their motivation starts to dip, and they become a disillusioned learner with not much skill or will. With time, they build their skill, though their will may remain low, what Blanchard and his team called the reluctant contributor. And then finally, in this model, the member becomes a peak performance with a high level of skill and will. Blanchard then proposed ways that a leader can support individuals in each of these 4 situations. So Blanchard's team identified 2 main ways supervisors or team leaders contribute to success of their individual team members. One is what they call directive behavior, and this is aimed at building knowledge and skill. The other they called supportive behavior, and this is aimed at building motivation and will. So the enthusiastic beginner needs more direction than support. The enthusiastic beginner Vista member needs more direction while they're learning and gaining the skills to complete the task on their VAD. The member is really counting on you, the leader, to assist them with the who, the what, when, where. How does this all work? The disillusioned learner needs a mix of both direction and support. The members contributing ideas and thoughts and really starting to stretch their wings as they become more familiar with their site and what they're going to be doing. This allows you, the leader, to provide direction as the member is taking a more active role while also offering your support to help maintain their motivation and enthusiasm for the work. The reluctant contributor needs more support and motivation, less direction. As members continue to build their skill, they may get to the reluctant contributor phase where they're starting to get good at what they do, but the newness has worn off and that initial excitement is gone. So they need some help with the motivation. A leader can help them see that what they're doing is important and they really are making a difference. And then we have our peak performer, needs only a low level of direction and support. So peak performance is where we want to see all of our team members. It's quite straightforward when both skill and will are high. Members are feeling confident, they're motivated, and they have the skills to match. You can confidently discuss and delegate tasks to them, knowing they're ready to handle it. So now that we've reviewed each of these styles, let's look at how they relate to the journey of service. But first, let's do a quick check-in with Andy.
All right, thank you, Vivica. So we want to pause here and give you a chance to see how well you've been following along. You will see a couple of questions and a pop-up on your screen. And just a reminder, if you're on a mobile device, the poll isn't visible, so you'll just have to read along. So we want you to please take a moment to review each set of statements there, and then identify the one that is not a true statement about situational leadership. I'm not going to read them aloud because that might confuse you, but there are 2 groups of statements, and one of those in each group is not true. So identify the one that's not true, and when you've done that for both groups, then go ahead and submit your response. I know it's a lot to read, and we've got maybe just under a quarter of you have responded. Hopefully all of you will. And the number keeps going up, so thank you. All right, we're up to halfway done. Good work. Give you just like another 20 seconds or so. Finish up and get your responses submitted. All right, so this will be the last call. If you would, please go ahead, submit your responses if you haven't done that already. And then we will go ahead and close the poll and publish the results. So you should see these coming up in just a moment here. All right, there they are. All right, so let's review the correct answer to both of these. So in the first group of statements, the one that is not true is statement B. The one that says high skill and low will are characteristics of a disillusioned learner. And actually, a disillusioned learner will have low skill and low will. And then in the second group, the one that's not true is A. Those with low will need higher directive behavior. Actually, if you have low will, what you need is more support, not more direction. So it looks like most of you, the majority of you, got those correct. So good work there.
Yes, excellent. I think you guys would pass that. You guys are VISTA leaders. So let's jump right into our first phase. So let's look at how you can apply the model of situational leadership to the journey of service your members may experience. And let's start at the beginning of service. This is that happy, exciting, sometimes scary time, often referred to as the honeymoon period. Vistas are introduced to their sites and their VADs, and you will probably be working very closely with them during this period, showing them the ropes. The member may be asking, where do I start? As a leader, you will likely implement a directive style to ensure they have the knowledge and skills that they need. Some ways you can use this directive style is by asking the question, how can I assist you with this? What do you need from me to accomplish this task? Even just asking, which task would you like to begin with? This will allow you to see where their interests are and what they need to get it done so that you can tailor your training, your guidance, and support to match. So as an example, one of the tasks from my VAD was to set up service learning projects for high school seniors. Now that is a big goal with a lot of different components, and I wasn't sure where to begin. I had to learn the community and what was already available and determine where could we assist in filling in the gaps. Getting help from my leader to break the project into smaller tasks and identify a starting point made it feel more manageable and doable. Support was provided to me as a member first, and then I began developing the skill of building relationships with community. So let's look at the disillusioned learner. Couple of months in, member might be starting to encounter some challenges and discover things are harder than they expected. They may have made some early missteps, so now their confidence has taken a hit. There's still a lot to learn, but their energy is starting to fall. So while they still need plenty of direction, they're also going to need your motivational support. When you think about our dual purpose check-in and the situational leadership style to implement, coaching is what comes to mind for me. This member used to be enthusiastic, but some of their enthusiasm has waned, and they may be wondering, what am I doing? What can you do as a leader to support them? Coaching allows for two-way communication and discussing ways to implement plans. Now, I'm a huge football fan. Go Chiefs. And I think about how sometimes the coaches call the plays, and other times they let the players on the field call the play. Or how a coach huddles everyone together and gives a pep talk. Getting to know your members as people and then the tasks they complete can really help you know which style to use with them. Between months 3 through 10 is where the bulk of the work is completed. Sometimes your member will need to know how to do something. Other times, they may just need reassurance that they're on the right track. You might remind them of all the things they've accomplished thus far, like learning about site and community, developing a work plan from their VAD, starting to build their skill, and any of the tasks they've accomplished thus far. Building on that strong foundation you have placed with your member, you can invite the member to bring agenda items or even make the agenda themselves for your check-ins. They can also provide additional information as to how the agency or program they are working with operates so that they can create capacity building solutions specific to their site. Now let's pause here. I know that you are each managing vistas at different points of service. I want you to start thinking about what challenges, celebrations, insights you had during each of these periods. I'm pretty sure you all have some great strategies to share as well, and Andy and I would like to hear about them.
All right, so as Viveka mentioned, here's your chance to share some of your own practices. For this activity, we'll use the chat, and we'd like you to share what ways you offer direction to members who are early in their service. So this would include the enthusiastic beginners as well as the disillusioned learners. And whether you are already conducting formal check-ins with your members or not, please share any of the directive behaviors that you are offering to your members. And just as a reminder, if you don't see the chat panel, move your cursor down to the bottom of the screen. Look for the chat bubble icon. If you're on a mobile device, you can participate in the chat. Just have to look down, I think, to the bottom of your screen, and you'll see an option for the chat. And make sure you're sending your response to everyone so that all your colleagues will be able to see your responses. And we've got our first few coming in already. So Alicia says, I like to share my past experiences from my earlier term of service. I find being able to relate to my members to be beneficial as they're getting started. Akia says we offer training opportunities on a variety of topics from finance to mental health. So doing that knowledge building in the form of a training. Again, Anita is sharing some of her own experiences, so that's a similar theme that's coming up. Beth mentioned something similar, as well as providing reading resources. Abby concurs on that around learning resources and trainings. Yeah, it looks like a number of you are offering training in the form of a webinar, readings, other types of materials. Let's see, Sasha talks about setting up check-ins with members and their supervisors and doing that early in service so that they being able to see what the dynamic is between the supervisor and the member, and then talk with both of them about what they expect for the year. So great ideas there. Yeah, we've got a lot of responses coming in, and I see some of you are upvoting and concurring on what others have said. I'm looking to see what else is new here. All right, trying to uplift your members, especially if they're feeling dismayed, and reassuring them that they're valued. All right, so lots of great ideas there. Thank you all for those. Viveka, did any of that stand out for you?
Yeah, some of those same things that you were talking about, Andy, definitely you all making yourselves available by sharing your own experience and then offering professional development and training opportunities for Vista members is great. I saw one that just drew my eye in is that make myself available to listen. And I was like, oh, yeah, perfect. And then just the motivation and the encouragement. So, I mean, many of you guys share some great strategies. And it's important to remember that we want to partner with our members early in their service. So, keep those strategies in mind as we review the reluctant contributor. Our members who are reluctant contributors are likely to have built their skills and completed at least a few of the tasks on their VAT. But the excitement has worn off and there are more tasks to complete and they might be low on motivation. So when Vista members are contributing, even if it's reluctantly, it really is a gift. And here's why I say it's a gift. I focus on the second word. They want to contribute and make a difference. They may still have reservations about their own skill level, possibly be wondering whether they're making a difference or are not quite sure what to do next. For myself, once I was able to get clear about my objectives, talk things through with my leader, and start to build my support system, I felt more confident and energized about tackling the capacity building task on my VAD. This phase is my personal favorite because it allows me to be a cheerleader. As I mentioned earlier, you all as Vista leaders wear many hats, and this one is one that's very important. Members may have the skills, but might lack the confidence or motivation to apply them. And this is a perfect opportunity to remind your members to think about their why. Why did they want to join Vista? And then remind them what they've accomplished thus far. Through your dual purpose check-ins, members can feel more confident in their abilities and find the energy they need. There are ongoing opportunities to encourage, to celebrate, and ask clarifying questions. Now, I'm sure we all know how to celebrate and what to say to encourage someone. The one that might be a little tricky is asking the right clarifying questions so you as a leader know how to provide the right support. If we ask generic questions like, is everything okay? More than likely, we'll get a generic response. Everything okay? Yes, fine. A few examples of clarifying questions you can ask instead during this phase are, what excites you most about your service right now? Help me to understand what you're thinking. And what do you need from me right now? These questions really allow the Vista to think and often brainstorm through ideas or thought processes with you, allowing for each of you a better understanding of what you need to do next or if additional conversation is needed. This is important because as Vistas begin to transition, they have a lot of demands on their time. Now you'll notice that we've transitioned from questions like, where do I start? What am I doing? And can I run something by you? To a declaration. I got this. This is the time when Vista members are both proficient and confident in their skills and they're engaged, motivated, and moving right along. Members have experienced some wins and they've had the opportunity to work and get to know the organizations that they are serving. It's also a time when they might start to think about their next steps and how and to whom are they going to pass along this phenomenal work they have been doing. For me, I had worked with school staff to put in place service learning projects that community stakeholders would maintain after I finished. I was also starting to think about whether I was going to go back to school or re-up for another year's service. As a leader, you can support Vistas during this time by sharing your experience, as you all mentioned, and how you possibly arrived at your decision. You can also support them by setting up a special check-in that is totally focused on their next move. This allows time for both of you to think about what needs to take place to ensure a smooth transition. for the Vista member, you as their leader, and for the project. As a leader, you see your members perform at their peak, and you may not need to direct them or provide as much support as you did in the beginning. You are spot on. Great job. Ultimately, this is where we want members to get to. Using the journey of service, we have been able to explore and expand our definition of check-in, always putting the member at the center. We're going to put up a chat question, and we want to hear from you all again.
All right, so as Viveka said, here's a chance for us to hear from you again. And this time, we'd like you to share what specific types of support you would offer to members who seem in need of help with motivation. So this could include those disillusioned learners as well as the reluctant contributors. So what type of support would you offer to your members who need help with their motivation? And let's see, we've got responses already. So Kathy mentioned pointing out their wins, like what successes they've already had. That can be helpful because it can be easy for someone to lose sight of those kinds of things. What else? Let's see, Matthew says direct them to particular books and webinars, maybe around motivation. Let's see, forming small groups among my team encourages team building and remind them that they're not in this experience alone. Yeah, I think that goes a long way to just support people, reminding them of the reason why they decided to serve, encouraging them to keep track of what they're doing, make a portfolio of their work, reminding them of their accomplishments. And just asking the question, what excites them, right? And are they able to see any differences that they've made? Other things the leaders could do would be on the practical side to try to remove impediments or obstacles, help them get through those things to get to the other side. Keeping them connected either with current vistas or even past vistas on the project to help them, again, feel not so alone and maybe get some allies in their work. Empowering them to make suggestions for the organization. And then even doing some of the simple things like just a handwritten note, a shout out, or a small gift. Just reminding them that they're valued, that they're important. Doing one-on-one wisdom talks with them, sharing ideas and perspectives, and sharing my own experiences, right? A tough moment in my own life and how I got through it. So these are all great examples. Thank you for sharing them. Viveka, what did you notice among all these ideas?
I love the fact that you all are uplifting and motivating and encouraging vistas, and whether that's through, like Andy said, with the shout outs. And I noticed, some people may be more introverted, so that could definitely take care of with a postcard. I mean, I remember how excited I was to get mail. That was great, so nice notes and just acknowledging their contribution and what they're doing truly goes a long way. These are great ideas here for supportive behaviors. And many of you shared some great strategies. And it's important to remember, as we said, always partnering with our VISTA members for success. So let's expand on some of those strategies that you all mentioned in the chat. And I want to shift gears now and talk about what goes into a check-in and how you can make your check-ins effective. It seems like I'm attending more meetings than ever, and I've become aware of meetings that just aren't effective. So I thought it was important for us to discuss some strategies to partner for success so our check-ins are as effective as possible. So first, we want to make sure that we have a clear agenda and send it out. This allows you and the VISTA member to come to the check-in already knowing what you're going to discuss. Have your questions for the member prepared to free you up to practice what I call LAP: listen, acknowledge, and plan. And we'll explore that more in just a minute. Second, think about what is it you want to accomplish. We've already established that during dual purpose check-ins that we first want to support the member and continue to cultivate the working relationship that allows members to show up as their best selves. So think about the journey of service. Where is this member and what have you learned about them that will help you support them? And then thirdly, how would you like to meet? We spent the afternoon talking about supporting your team members. Using technology is another way to deepen your connection and support. Being able to put a face to a name or a voice goes a long way in building rapport. It was very helpful for me since I was serving by myself. Or if you have a VISTA member in peak performer mode, then maybe you can just do a quick email or a call may suffice. And then finally, is this meeting or topic something that can be done as a group check-in versus a one-on-one? Some topics are very effective done in a group setting and can help the group grow, identify common feelings, and strengthen connections. And these are great ways for fellow members to support each other and talk about lessons learned and best practices. Again, this does have to be tailored to meet the VISTAs where they are. Your superpower, you have served and done so successfully, and I already know you can adjust. The important thing is communicate and use the correct modality for the occasion and the VISTA member. And we'll look at this closer in a few slides. So when you are building your agenda or structure for a check-in, there are some elements you should include. Now, it goes without saying that you should take time to think about and prepare for check-ins with your member. This includes identifying what you hope to check in on and any questions you think might help spur the conversation. So in conducting the check-in, like I said, I apply a technique I call LAP: listen, acknowledge, and plan. You want to listen actively to members' concerns or celebrations. And it's crucial because it ensures that you understand their needs and can identify the best way that you can support them. So you want to use all those good listening skills, like being fully present for the other person, listening for what they are saying, as well as for what they are not saying. Listen for meaning and feel free to ask questions to gain clarity. Open-ended questions foster dialogue and allow the member to think about what is working and where they might need your assistance. It provides you ways too on how you can offer additional support. And when the member shares an area of need, you want to acknowledge their concern and assure them that you are with them on the journey. Reflect what you heard so that they know their concern has registered and that you're willing to help them. And finally, plan. Plan together for a solution for the concern or the need. As a leader, you're not responsible for solving problems for your members. You can, however, help them develop their own plan for overcoming challenges. Now, that could mean identifying skills they want to work on developing. It could be helping the member weigh various options and select the one they want to implement. And collaboration and brainstorming are great tools to use here. When I was nervous about meeting community members, my VISTA leader suggested I attend a staff meeting, speak with the teachers and support staff to see what connections they were familiar with or that partnerships they were currently working on. This allowed me a warm transfer into the community, and I learned how these partnerships could be expanded for the benefit of the program. I want to just share a quick little tidbit with you that I came across from some research by Salesforce that I think is just fascinating. Employees who feel their voices heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered to perform their best work. That is a ringing endorsement for listening and acknowledging. All right, the check-in, not quite finished. Let's look at the rest. After you've prepared for and conducted the check-in, using the LAP approach, there's still a couple more steps. Summarize. We know that often it is the last thing someone says that sticks with us. Ask the member to summarize what they heard and what their next steps could be, if any. This step also provides you with the opportunity to reassure the VISTA member that you are here as a support and to reach out to you if they need anything. And then document. Don't skip this step. And it doesn't have to take more than a few minutes of your time. Write down key discussion points, next steps, and any feedback that the member provided. You're managing a lot of priorities and a lot of members. So keeping notes really frees you up to not have to remember everything about everyone. Now, our last strategy is one that I think is always fun: group check-ins. Group check-ins, as we mentioned before, are a great way for other VISTAs to learn from each other and connect. I mentioned that during my service year, I was the only VISTA at my site. Then each VISTA on the project I was placed, each VISTA on the project that I was on, we were each placed at different high schools around Washington, D.C. So we were all serving in what you could call isolation. I lived for group check-ins. This was a time for what I called the 3 C's: celebrate, collaborate, and console. Just being able to ask someone who was going through a similar experience, even if it wasn't the exact same, nonetheless was very helpful. I was able to discuss concerns, get some tips and best practices, and compare stories. That's where the consoling came in. The same way you prepare for a one-on-one check-in, you want to be prepared for group check-ins so that they stay productive and positive. Some conversation starters you could use are: what is a task that takes 10 minutes to complete and has big results? Or what is one strength you can share with the rest of your teammates? And I always love this one: how can we better show appreciation for each other? You want to be clear about your outcomes or what you would like to accomplish and how you all are going to meet up. You can use the 3 C's to help set your agenda. And I'm sure you'll glean a lot of feedback that you can use to offer support. So in the spirit of the 3 C's, and we'll pick one, collaborate, Andy and I have another question for you.
All right, so as Vivica said, this is another opportunity for us to hear from you, and we'd like you to share what kind of prompting questions you might ask members during a group check-in. So many of you were mentioning earlier about getting them to support each other and to remember that they're not alone. So what are some ways that you can do that through prompting questions when you've got them together for a group check-in? Are there questions that you've already posed to the group that either celebrate, collaborate, or console your team members? If so, we'd love to hear them. Let's see. So we've got a couple of ideas here so far. One possible question: are there any projects that you would like to all participate in to push all of your individual projects further? So a way to collaborate and get all of them working together. Let's see. So here's another one using wacky icebreakers. Like here's one: pick up the closest thing next to you, and if you had to use that object to survive, how would you use it?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so using icebreakers, there's some thumbs up for that idea. Another possible question: is there any planning on your project that I can help you with? And doing that planning in the group setting maybe allows everyone to be better informed about what each member is working on. So if you've got other ideas for questions or prompts you can ask or use during a group check-in, Here's your chance. Oh, Colin uses the rose-thorn approach and highs and lows. It's always a good way to sort of take the temperature of the group and get their thoughts about what's working and what maybe could be better.
Good. Those are all some great suggestions, and I'll definitely be using that icebreaker by next get together. So thank you guys for those responses. And let's wrap up and look at some resources. So here's a quick look at what we've covered. So we looked at the importance of dual purpose check-ins, getting to know our members, not just their tasks, and supporting the person first. Next, we explored how can we support members, and we use this by reviewing the common situational leadership phases that members may go through and how you can provide them support that matches their changing needs over the course of their service year. And then finally, we looked at strategies for effective check-ins. It is important to set the tone, build rapport, and then use LAP. Listen, acknowledge, plan. Now, don't forget the ideas you guys listed in the chat, and don't be afraid to switch it up and try something new. Before we go, I just want to point out some resources, and you can download these from the link that's pasted in the chat. So the situational leadership website, kenblanchard.com, as well as the Gallup article that was mentioned earlier, and the research by Salesforce. So those links will all be in the chat for you. And I have enjoyed spending this time with you this afternoon. I want to thank each of you personally for your dedication and service, and just continuing to be part of the solution as Vista leaders. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Viveka, for this really informative presentation. And now turning back to our audience, we'd like to know what you think. So I invite you to complete a short evaluation of the webinar. Your feedback will be really helpful for me, as I'm always looking for ways to make these sessions the most useful for you. And they'll be really helpful for Viveka to hear what you thought about the presentation.
Yes.
So the survey is probably already open in your browser window behind the Zoom, but if not, we've got the link pasted there in the chat. And now we'd like to see what questions you may have. So for the Q&A session, we will use the chat feature. And if you don't see the chat panel, you can, again, move your cursor to the bottom of the screen and click on that chat bubble icon. And let's see if we have any questions coming in. Getting some more ideas coming. Oh, here's a question from Joe. Are there any groups, either Facebook or LinkedIn, where I connect with other current or former Vista leaders? So yes, absolutely. There are. If you go to Facebook, and actually sometimes I find that Google search, if you search on Google for Facebook group AmeriCorps Vista leader, it's easier to find the groups there than it actually is when you're within Facebook. Seems counterintuitive. I don't know of any on LinkedIn. I think there's also a Reddit group with Vista leaders. So yeah, you can use those as ways. And I'll also plug the Vista campus, has a side called Vista Connect. There's a section, a discussion board section there for Vista leaders as well. So this question I think is going to be for you, Viveka. Matthew asks, how would you apply the situational leadership paradigm to Vistas who are returning for a second or even a third term of service?
Oh, great question. And I think it is that same. Now, you'll still utilize those 4 key areas, but you might use different techniques within those. So a lot of times, we might have Vistas in their second year and you're re-upping. And I do think it goes back to when we're thinking about that reluctant contributor. They are contributing. They signed up for another year of service. So this somewhere is very important to them, and being able to tap into that. And I think the easiest way to tap into that is really drilling down on, I see you signed up for another year of service. This is phenomenal. Glad you still want to be part of the solution. What are one or two things that you hope to get out of the second year of service that you weren't able to do the first year? So I still think we still can use these situational leaderships. You're just going to reframe them in a different way.
Great, thank you for that. Aniki has a question as well. Do we need to do the DISC personality test so that we can better determine the working style of our members?
No, I don't think that you need to. I mean, any tool I think is great. Myers-Briggs, DISC, whatever it is that if you have that available to you. But I think one of, when Andy had asked what stood out, and when someone said being available to listen, I think that is really what's going to help drive that conversation. Being there to listen, and then also making sure that we're asking the clarifying questions so that we can really get to the crux of what is it that this member needs that I can support them with? And just as you all spend that time with your members, that person first, like I said, when someone asks me, what would you do? Or what would you like to see? I'm invested because I feel like this person took the time to ask me. And then my personality or my the likes or wants, that's automatically just going to be part of the rapport as we're building this relationship and going on this journey together.
All right, and then I think this will be our final question from Kelly, who asks, are there different strategies to use with older adults who are VISTA members? But maybe the implication is that maybe they're more experienced than I am as the leader, perhaps?
Could be. I think that whenever you could, and think about it from that managing up philosophy or a technique, and really draw down on their skills and abilities. So, if they are older, that means that they, 9 times out of 10, they've had experience, and really ask them to bring their knowledge, skills, and abilities. So there's taking that interest and saying, all right, where is it that I can assist you? But also, even when we think about the group check-ins, and I love that question when we sit and ask about what is a strength that you have, because a lot of times we have a reservoir of knowledge, KSAs, or government speak, knowledge, skills, and abilities right around us, but because people haven't been asked or allowed to really use them, they just kind of keep it hidden. So if I'm working with individuals who have more experience than I do, or maybe older than me, I definitely try to tap in and to see how I can put them to work and utilize all that rich experience that they have.
Great. Well, thank you all for your participation in the questions, and Viveka, thank you for those answers. I want to give a little preview for our next webinar for leaders. It's on ways that VISTA leaders support members and projects. It's going to take place on a Wednesday instead of our usual Thursday, and that'll be November 10th. And we hope to see you all there. And again, I want to thank our presenter, Viveka Brooks of TBG Trains, for such a really informative presentation. Thanks too to Bethany DeSoblin for her instructional design assistance, and our production team, Jeff Banas and Sabrina Edmondson. Thank you all for joining. We hope to see you again.